Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about the basic anatomy of the foot structure so that you can understand why we need to change our behavior, change our activity with this part of our body. I have here as a little visual aid a drawing of the plantar aspect of the foot, the muscles of the plantar side of the foot. So that's the bottom of your foot. I used these kinds of drawings to help me in physiotherapy school when we had to memorize all the different muscles and the origins and insertions and the actions. So it was fun to dig this back up. But basically, why I want to use this guy, we're going to start with the basics. So in your foot, we have 26 different bones, which is pretty insane if we think about it, because we have 2 feet. That means we have 52 bones for our 2 feet. And in the entire human body, we have around 206 bones total. So the bones of the feet account for 25% of the total bones that we have in our body, which goes to show just how complex and dynamic this area of our body really is. Within the 26 bones, there are 33 joints. So a joint is basically anywhere where 2 bones meet and are going to articulate or move around each other, with each other. So 33 joints, which also shows us just how much movability this structure of our body is capable of. Extremely versatile, can go through a pretty wide range of movements. Okay. Next up, we have the muscles. So we have 29 muscles in our foot. Of these 29 muscles, we have 10 extrinsic muscles, which are basically muscles that originate in the lower leg and then insert into the foot. Like we have these examples here, your peroneus longus, tibialis posterior. In my diagram here, the kind of peachy colored structures are tendons, and then the red fleshy bits are actual muscle bellies. So you can see how it just inserts in, and it seems to originate from somewhere else, floating in space for this diagram. But 10 extrinsic muscles and 19 intrinsic muscles. So if I flip to the top, basically how I drew this is it's the 3 layers of musculature in the foot. So this is the most superficial, showing some of our 3 of our main intrinsic muscles that originate and insert in the foot alone. Now, a phenomena that we are seeing a lot nowadays is that the extrinsic muscles, once again, the muscles that originate in the lower leg and move and insert into the foot, are overcompensating due to the fact that the intrinsic foot muscles aren't doing their job. And why aren't those intrinsic muscles doing their job? It has a lot to do with the footwear that we are encasing our foot in on a daily basis over a lifetime. So in the next video, we'll be diving in deep all about footwear. But for now, I just want you to note that a lot of our work in regaining your foot function is going to involve training these little intrinsic muscles to do their job again. Very important. When certain structures of our body are not doing their part to take on the load of our activities, then naturally other parts of the body are going to have to take on that extra load, which over time can lead to pain and injury in those structures that are overloaded. The next part of our basic foot anatomy understanding is that we have 5 toes, 1 arch, and 1 heel, naturally. The main thing that I want to focus on with this is the arch of the foot, because this tends to be the place where I receive the most questions due to the information that clients of mine have received from perhaps a doctor or that they read online. And I feel like it's a more common discussion that people are aware of, like, oh, I have that my arch is very flat, or I have really high archers. And then what are the beliefs that we attach with that phenomena? I want to clear the air here a little bit with regards to discussion of the arch of the foot. That when we are assessing your arches, what we're going to be doing is looking at differences from your left and your right. We're not going to compare your norm to the norm of the rest of the human population. Why? Because within the human population, there exists an immense amount of variety, and there's not really a strong correlation between the extremes of that variety and pain and disability. So, for example, I've worked with really high-level athletes who have feet as flat as a duck's, like the flattest feet I've ever seen, and they weren't experiencing any pain or dysfunction within their feet. Maybe they were having problems higher up the chain, which is why they were working with me, but necessarily when we assess their standing and their gait mechanics and their running and their movement, it wasn't that their feet weren't functioning that well. Conversely, someone who has extremely high arches can also present with or without pain. So the main thing I want you to focus on here is it's not about what your arches look like, it's about how they feel. And when you're feeling your arch, the likelihood is, if you're here taking this program, that the intrinsic muscles of the foot aren't really doing their job to support your arch adequately. So in our feet, we actually have three main arches. Show my foot. We have three main arches. We have our medial arch, the lateral arch, and the transverse arch. Now, the medial arch is kind of the main place where we focus, but really all three arches are important for the overall function of your foot. Or, more precisely, all of the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles that are helping to improve, to support your arch are important to acknowledge, to take into account. So, for example, your medial arch in particular, let's bring that diagram back, is going to be supported by, we have this is the foot diagram, this is your big toe. So that medial arch is mainly supported by, we're going to that deepest layer, two extrinsic muscles. We have your peroneus longus and your tibialis posterior that you can see insert right into this bone here. That's like the center of the medial arch, the main arch of your foot. And then as far as other intrinsic muscles that are also supporting that structure, we have your flexor digitorum longus, which is basically the muscle that helps to curl your toes. You have your flexor digitorum hallucis, which is the one that helps you curl just the big toe. And we have the abductor hallucis longus. Longus or brevis, just the abductor hallucis. That is going to help to spread that big toe out, pull it out. So naturally, in thinking about what all of these muscles are helping to accomplish, it is curling your toes under, spreading your toes out, and then pointing your ankle with a bit of inversion or eversion. So if we break it down like that, then it's easy to understand, like, hey, if my foot is not really going through those kinds of motions on a daily basis, then those muscles are probably weak, and that's probably lending into having decreased support of my arch, which is crucial for the overall functioning of your feet and their ability to support your body as you stand, walk, run, dance, jump, all of these things. So this is why we're going to get into some exercises for how to turn these muscles back on and strengthen up your foot in order to get rid of the pain and dysfunctions that you've been experiencing. These pains and dysfunctions are a result of, once again, certain muscles compensating for others, certain tissues experiencing more wear and tear and stress compared to others due to that compensation, and possibly something involved with alignment of your feet and how you're standing and walking, which we will get into detail later on in the following videos. Another component of the anatomy of not just your foot, but your whole body that I want to touch upon is the nervous system, your nerves. So we have our brain, we have our spinal cord, and then we have these nerve bundles that exit out of the spinal cord, of the spinal column, and then move into our limbs, so our legs and our arms. Now, your nerves have two functions. One of them is sensory. So in order to feel pressure, to feel touch, to feel temperature, these nerves are going to pick up those sensations and communicate them back up to the brain. Then the second type of nerve is the motor neuron, which is basically communicating action from your brain down back to the muscle fibers. Part of nervous system, healthy nervous system regulation is to stimulate these nerves as they are meant to be stimulated. So we can think of the super common saying, like, if you don't use it, you lose it. And the same goes for our ability for our nerves to communicate, as well as the structures they're communicating with. So in the case of the motor neurons, that would be your muscles. So a part of the benefit as well of learning how to activate those intrinsic muscles of your feet, which have very likely been quite dormant for who knows how long, would be to regain that mind-muscle connection. And by activating these muscles in the foot, you're also going to be drawing some healthy circulation through the area. And so this is why this applies to every aspect of our body. We really want to use the structures that we were designed with, because they all have a function and a purpose. And when we neglect that function over a period of time, then this is when problems start to arise. This is part of the puzzle when we start to think about a condition such as peripheral neuropathy, where you're losing sensation in your feet. Now, this has to do with systemic issues, such as like poor circulation caused by perhaps diabetes, for example, or, congenital heart issues, weakness of the heart, not being able to circulate effectively. But it can be helped by activating and stimulating the foot. So this is where, we can kind of receive certain diagnoses and read the general literature and just give up completely. Or we can try our best to work with our body and reactivate certain parts of it on a natural basis that can help revive and regain at least a little bit of function, or at least to prevent further deterioration. So I think this is a much better option than just resigning to our fate when we receive certain types of diagnoses. There's oftentimes a lot that can be done to help improve your situation. So that was talking about the nerve function and how that relates to our foot. The next piece is considering the exterior of it, the skin. So for this, I want you to actually look at your own 2 feet and look at how your skin of the foot is. Not how, dirty it is if you're walking around in the dirt a lot, like I do, but more observing calluses, hardened parts of the skin of the foot. Now, most of us are probably walking around with quite a bit of callus on the outer edges of the big toe, perhaps the pinky toe, and the heel. Now, our calluses are basically giving you information about where most of the pressure and friction is on your foot. Why is this important? It can clue us into where you might be experiencing overpressure on a certain aspect of your foot. So if you notice any differences between the right and left side, for example, or if you really only have callus along the big toe and nowhere else, these are clues as to where you are putting too much pressure through your foot. Ideally, a little bit of wind. Ideally, what we are looking for is that the whole base of the foot, namely in a relative sort of C orientation, like your heel, kind of the outer ridge here, depending how high or flat your arch is, maybe a little bit in the arch, but less so normally, and then across the base of the toes, that all of this skin feels harder, tenser. So it's almost like one big callus. And why do calluses form? Your body is basically protecting itself. So it is sending more skin protection to cushion those areas where you have more pressure. So if you're walking quite evenly through both feet, using the entirety of the foot and not overpressuring on one side or the other, then you should feel that your skin is tougher all the way through. This is also impacted by footwear. So if we are always wearing shoes and protecting our feet, then this process of skin reinforcement isn't going to happen. And the likelihood is that your feet are probably super sensitive because they haven't reinforced themselves with a little bit of extra skin. Once again, we'll be getting into the specifics of footwear in the next video, but I want you to consider if you are always wearing shoes, even in your own home, then maybe it's time to slowly progress to being more barefoot more often. So I'm not saying I don't want you to whip your shoes off and go walk around outside right away, especially if you have a lot of sensitivity. But over time, you can progressively improve your body's ability to withstand texture stress, but also improve your body's ability to perceive the ground by walking around barefoot. So this would look like, start out on your smooth tile or wooden floors in the house, and then progressing to walking on nice, smooth sidewalk, and then maybe a little bit of dirt, and then maybe a bit of grass, and then eventually some rocks. But this exercise of being barefoot and having contact with a variety of different textures is going to stimulate your sensory neurons in your feet in a healthy way that is reinforcing proper brain-foot communication. The last thing I want to introduce in this video before we get into your homework exercises, yay, is a different philosophy than westernized medicine. We're talking about ancient Chinese medicine and their belief that within the body we have these energy lines that are correlated to our organ systems. Now these energy lines, a lot of them end in our feet, or they're actually called meridians. And this is something that acupuncturists work with. If you learn how to do any acupressure, that's also in that vein, specifically targeting your energy meridians. But what I want to draw your attention to is, in the last video, I had you start to palpate your feet, to feel around and see how things are doing down there. Now, this next step is, and this is a bit of an extra thing because I'm not an expert in Chinese medicine. I just wanted to, introduce it, bring some attention to it. The belief is that the bottom of our foot can be seen as a map for our whole body. Same with the ears, same with the hands. So when we have chronic tension or pain in a certain part of the foot, perhaps this can correlate with a certain area of the body where you are also experiencing dysfunction. So I don't want you to freak out and be like, oh, I checked the foot map diagram and let's say, here through my arch, that's pain, or I'm having a lot of pain here, and so therefore my small intestine is all messed up. No, but do reflect that it's like, well, yeah, maybe I do have some kind of gastrointestinal dysregulation. Like I have diarrhea often, or I get gas a lot, or, what's going on there. You can start to be compassionately curious about your experience in your own body, because the reality is that everything really is connected. And so linking something like palpating your foot can actually give you also a little bit of extra information about other areas of your body. But then what can you do about that? You slowly get more information, try different things out, make adjustments in your lifestyle. And for the foot in particular, we can, and this is something that's common in acupressure and acupuncture, is by stimulating these endpoints of the meridian line, I am going to effectively draw energy down through that meridian line, and that's going to help clear the chi of the whole meridian. So we will be getting into that as a part of your homework exercises for this week. So in the next video, you will see all the exercises that I want you to be working on for now. Okay, thank you for watching and paying attention. And once again, if any questions arose in this video, please feel free to share them in the Facebook group or hop in on those office hours and we can chat about it. I would really love to. Okay, so you're doing great work. Stay focused. Get in on those exercises next.